Nobody wants to admit it, but right now the Seahawks' biggest problem isn't who we're playing. It's that little thread of trust that snaps every single time Sam Darnold forces a ball and the defense has to save the season again. I'm Matt Coleman, and after that weird 21-19 loss to the Rams, we got to face three ugly truths at the same time. Darnold's arm, Gray Zabel's knee, and the absolute weight this defense is carrying. The question is simple. Was this just a hiccup or the first sign of a total meltdown in Emerald City? Outrage. That's the only word pounding in the head of every veteran Seahawks fan after watching Sam Darnold throw not one, not two, but 4 interceptions in a massive game against the Rams. 4, his worst mark since the dark days with the Jets. And the most painful part is that this 21-19 loss wasn't because the whole team fell apart. It was because, once again, the quarterback who had been looking so good decided to just give the game away. Last week against the Cardinals already raised the yellow flag. Too many turnovers, risky decisions, and a clear warning. If Darnold screws around against a real competitive team, the bill is going to come due. Well, it's here. The Rams cashed in on every mistake. 2 of their touchdowns came off picks that put our defenses back against the wall, starting drives deep in the red zone. And still, this Warrior defense kept the game alive until the last second. The cruel irony is that Darnold also leads the NFL in explosive passes, meaning he's part of the solution. And he's part of the problem. What's scariest is that these mistakes weren't coming from heavy pressure, all-out blitzes, or a collapsing pocket. They came from bad decisions, forced throws into double coverage, slow reads, the kind of stuff you just can't justify in November when you're 7-3 trying to prove you're elite. And before anyone tries to spread the blame, let's be clear. This is not an offensive collapse. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet ran well. Jackson Smith-Njigba is still dominant, leading the league in receiving yards. This collapse was individual, and it has a name, Darnold. But now here's the problem nobody wants to face. What do you do when the guy who got you here is also the guy who could take, because when the one rookie on the O-line who was actually working falls, the impact is way bigger than just pass protection. Shock. That was the feeling watching Gray Zabel on the turf, grabbing his knee with a trembling hand while the whole stadium just held its breath. And when a player like him, a first-round rookie who was playing like a dominant veteran, can't get up right away, you know, it's not just another stinger, it's potentially the start of a slow-motion disaster for this entire Seahawks offense. Because losing the game to the Rams was bad, sure, but losing Zabel, that might be worse. This kid wasn't just a promising left guard, he was the pillar holding up everything that was left of a functional offensive line. The impact was immediate. Christian Haynes, just activated, comes in for Zabel and gets launched 5 yards back on his first snap, like he ran into an invisible wall. And this is with Darnold already emotionally rattled after multiple turnovers. You know that moment when you just feel the structure start to crack? That was it. Zabel hadn't given up a single sack all year. He's the reason the pass pro got so much better in 2025. He opened the hole for Walker's 25-yard run. He was the silent anchor of a unit that was already shaky on the right side. Now without him, this line isn't just unbalanced, it's vulnerable. And as if the physical hit wasn't enough, there's the emotional collapse. The players felt it, the team felt it, and the fans saw it. Mike McDonald, in his presser, summed it up with a cold, "No updates yet. We'll get the images and see what's going on." But you could read in his eyes what the words were trying to hide. The real fear of a season derailing because of one knee that won't bend. The cruelest part? The defense played like a playoff team. Matthew Stafford had 130 yards. The Rams were stuck. We had a real shot to win. And even with Darnold messing everything up, all we had to do was turn one of those 3 red zone field goals into a touchdown. And it's a different story, but we didn't. And now all you hear is this echo, this feeling that even playing badly, the Seahawks could have won. But without Zabel, the next few games are going to take more than grit. They're going to take improv, resilience, and an offensive line that, honestly, might not even exist anymore. And if you think the pressure on Darnold was bad in this game, just wait till you see how he reacts now, without his best protector in front of him and the shadow of his past creeping back into his head. Before we get to the next point, we got to pause. Because sometimes football reminds us that there are moments much, much bigger than wins, losses, or stats. Moments that just shake the entire soul of a fan base. And today, unfortunately, is one of those moments. Seattle woke up to some heavy news, the kind that silences even the loudest debates. A legend, a pillar of Seahawks history, has passed away. Kenny Easley wasn't just a great player. He was a force of nature, the kind of defender who forever changes the identity of a franchise. Before the Legion of Boom even existed, before Seattle was even known as an intimidating, disciplined defense, Easley was there setting the standard. He was the physical and emotional heart of that unit, a safety who could hit like a linebacker, cover like a cornerback, and lead like a true captain. His impact, it went so far beyond the stats. Easily hit the league in 1981, and from the very first snap, he just looked like he was playing at a different speed than everybody else. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro, Hall of Fame. Those titles tell part of the story, but they still don't explain the almost reverent respect that players and coaches had for him. Easley was the type of athlete who changed the opponent's behavior before the snap. Quarterbacks hesitated. Receivers thought twice about crossing the middle, and off the field, he was just as big. A community advocate, an active voice, a mentor, an example for generations of Seattle athletes. His influence still echoes. So many of today's defensive leaders cite Easley as an inspiration, even if they never saw him play live. The news of his death at 66 isn't just sad. It's one of those moments that makes an entire franchise just stop. Seattle loses an icon, an enforcer, a pioneer. But the legacy? That lives on in every single player who wears the blue and green with pride. Kenny Easley helped shape who the Seahawks are, and that will never be forgotten. Even on days like this, when the fan base's heart is a little heavier, the season keeps rolling, and the team still faces major challenges on the field. So taking a deep breath and moving forward, let's get back to the news directly impacting the current Seahawks, because there is still a lot happening in Seattle. Let's get to the next update. Surprised? Not one bit. The script felt like it was written all week. Darnold would get his golden chance to bury the New York ghosts, shut up the critics, and prove he was ready to be more than a stopgap in Seattle. But instead, he relived the nightmare on national TV. 4 interceptions in a scene scarily similar to the infamous Seeing Ghosts game against the Patriots years ago. Only this time the uniform was navy, the crowd was the 12th man, and the team was a legit contender for the top of the NFC. The defense carried the load, held the Rams to 21 points despite starting 2 drives basically in their own end zone, and still put the ball back in the offense's hands with a real chance to win. But what we saw was a hesitant quarterback, fooled by dime packages, throwing balls into blind spots like his receivers were invisible. The criticism came hard, from the press, from the fans, from all the old haters who were just waiting for this stumble to point the finger again. But then, here's the part a lot of people didn't expect. The Seahawks locker room didn't just not turn their back. They doubled down on their quarterback, Mike McDonald, usually cool and calculated in his interviews, was direct in the presser. "Keep ripping it, man. We love you and we've got your back." A simple sentence, but it carries a ton of trust at a moment when any less secure coach would be thinking about a preventive benching. And it wasn't just the coach. Ernest Jones IV, the emotional leader of the defense, went even further. He said, flat out, that this loss is not on Darnold. And he sent a message to the critics in a tone I probably can't repeat here, but it made it clear. The locker room is locked in with their quarterback. That says a lot. Because this group isn't just a bunch of athletes, they're soldiers in the same cause. They know they're going to need Darnold in the coming games, especially without Zabel and with the pressure to win the division. The question that's just hanging in the air is, will this public support actually work on the field? Can Darnold, even with all this pressure and doubt, keep that aggression and find his targets like he was doing? He showed flashes even in this game. Pinpoint passes and tight coverage, quick reads through zone gaps. The talent is there. What's missing is the emotional consistency. And this week, this is the real test, with the eyes of the league on him, without the support of a fan base that's sick of turnovers, and with his defense holding the line like never before. And if you still doubt the level of this defense, what you're about to see might just change your mind about the real pillar of this team. This is just unbelievable. Even with 4 interceptions from their quarterback and giving up 2 touchdowns from ridiculously bad field position, the Seahawks almost ripped a win away from the Rams. And that only happened because of one unit that is playing with blood in their eyes, teeth gritted, and the kind of tactical discipline worthy of the old days. The defense. We are talking about a group that stared down a top 5 offense in the NFL, a team averaging almost 28 points a game and held those guys to 21. And remember, 14 of those points were gifted to them after turnovers, one of them starting at Seattle's 3-yard line. On normal drives with a full field to defend, the Rams scored 1 touchdown. That's it, 1. The rest was just a fight, a brawl. closed gaps and frustration all over Stafford's face, and we got to talk names. Leonard Williams was the general in the middle of the trench. Kobe Bryant had a punch-out that would have made Peanut Tillman jump out of his seat. Ernest Jones IV took responsibility for the run game adjustments, even pointing out his own mistakes on runs up the gut, and then just started blowing up gaps like he was exercising the mistakes in real time. Only 12 first downs allowed, only 249 total yards, and the Rams converted just 2 of 11 third downs. That is not a fluke. That is work, and that is culture. The kind of culture McDonald brought in when he said the defensive standard had to be the highest in the NFL. Remember death zone football? It's happening. It doesn't matter if the ball starts at the 3, the 10, or the 50. This defense hits the field with the same fire, and the cruelest detail of all is that, even with this insane performance, the loss lands on the offense's doorstep. And rightly so. Cooper Kupp, that Cooper Kupp, said after the game the defense was phenomenal and that the offense blew it. Darnold knows it. He said the defense always keeps them alive, and he's right, but that just makes the weight on his shoulders heavier, because one unit is playing like a Super Bowl team, the other is playing like it's in a rebuild, and that is not sustainable. If Darnold doesn't start matching that energy, if this O-line stays in pieces, this defense will get exhausted, and that would be a crime against what this group is building. The question now is, with the season heading into the home stretch, are these Seahawks a real team, or just an elite defense carrying an offense that isn't ready? In the end, what we saw in Los Angeles wasn't just a few isolated mistakes or a tough road loss. We saw a partial collapse of offensive trust, the potential loss of the best rookie OL of the season, and a defense playing like it was in the trenches of the Super Bowl. The Seahawks are living a contradiction right now. Half the team is ready to fight for it all. The other half is still tripping over its own ghosts. The question just hanging in the air is a cruel one. Are we watching the birth of a tough, resilient team, or the slow-motion implosion of an unbalanced roster? Comment below, 12th man.